All right. Well, good afternoon, good morning, depending on which time zone you're at. I appreciate you all joining us and attending our webinar today, Leveraging Compliance and Customer Data for Higher Sales in 2023. Before we get started, I want to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. When you join today's webinar, you selected either to join by phone call or computer. If for any reason you need to change your selection, you can do so by accessing your audio pane in the control panel. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions by typing your questions in the questions pane on the control panel. You may send the questions in at any point in time as we move forward as we progress through the webinar. If it seems as if there's something that's confusing, or if it makes sense for Tim to pause and answer questions, I will interject at that time. Otherwise, we'll wait until the end for some Q&A. The presentation will be available to you following the webinar. We'll send it out via email. We are recording the webinar today, so others can watch it on a later date. I would now like to introduce Tim Hayden, the CEO and Managing Partner of brain+trust Partners. brain+trust Partners serves many different industries, automotive being one of them. You will find Tim and his company on LinkedIn and Twitter at the Tim Hayden and at Your brain+trust. I'll take it over. I'll send it over to you now, Tim. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Janet, and thank you all for being here today, wherever you are, whatever the weather's like. I hope you're warm and safe. It's an exciting week, obviously, in the automotive world with a certain big show happening in Dallas. And I know I'm going to see a few people there that may be on this call, but no matter what, really want to thank NIADA for hosting me. As I shared with Janet yesterday, I think it's the independent dealer that has the opportunity to go from 0 to 100 when it comes to digitizing their business. And as far as we're talking about today, being compliant and growing sales. A little bit about me. I have owned marketing agencies and software companies over the course of the last 20 years. It was the end of the 2000s that I started to get really heavy into mobile technology and understanding what that meant. The proliferation of the smartphone, which you all know very well by now, is that you can buy anything in the world from your phone, from where you're sitting right now, where you're walking in the next few minutes, or from 50,000 feet in the sky on an airplane. This is a different time, right? This is a very different time that we're living in. And one of the things that I'll tell you is that I've had the opportunity and the honor of building some fantastic digital products throughout my career. One that I'm very proud of and that I still use to this day is the Hilton Honors mobile app. I'm not a paid spokesperson or ambassador for Hilton, as it were, but this just popped up on my screen today, on my phone that is, when I checked into my room in Dallas, and did it all with my phone. Those of you who are familiar with it, it's a story worth telling, but what Hilton has effectively done is given me the opportunity and the power as the consumer or the guest to totally bypass the front desk. I don't need to talk to a human once whenever I go to a Hilton hotel. I get there when I want to get there, and I use my phone as a key to open the door. I can actually order dinner and have it waiting for me in my room. And I left out the best part. 24 hours before I arrive, I get to pick the room I want to be in and check in and request that digital key. Obviously, that's the message they're giving me here. That's what really has been going on in the world, is the digitization of our lives and the digitization of our businesses. You as dealers, you as folks in the car business, know that it's not just email and social media. It is everything across the store. Everything that you have there is going digital if it's not there already. And then the product itself has become a consumer packaged product or a consumer electronic, and that is the vehicle itself. Not to digress, but we've just seen in the last 2 years how the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas has become the launching pad for OEMs, right? That's where they go to launch new vehicles, new models, and obviously new functionality and new possibilities. They're not waiting for Detroit. They're not waiting for New York or LA. They're waiting only for what happens in Vegas at the first of the year, because that's what they're doing, is launching new consumer electronics. What this has done, and what you see on the screen in front of you, though, more specifically, is it's created a number of challenges to business, because now that we are a good 17, 18 years into this heavy digitization, it creates problems. And we at brain+trust, we focus on, and our clients come to us looking for help to navigate these things. I won't get into these deeply, but at the top of it, misinformation and bad data. Many of you are serving the same customer, and you're doing so across several different departments, and certainly several different systems. There's disparate technologies that you're using to manage that one customer experience. You invest in new technology and you don't integrate it. And it's not something that I'm critiquing the automotive industry as much as I am saying it's every business has done this. There's rapid technology evolution. There's new functionality with every new iPhone and every new Samsung Galaxy that hits the market, with our connected televisions, with our connected homes, and everything in our lives. It comes out with such a fast succession. It's very difficult for many businesses to keep up. I already mentioned disparate platforms and systems. We're going to talk pretty serious about that today, and how you can cure that. And then the fragmentation of stakeholders, and obviously what's happening in public policy making, both from a customer data privacy standpoint and from a rulemaking standpoint, which we'll talk about. On the right of the screen is just other things that are happening. Automation, not since the 60s, right? When we went to shipping containers and we started the race for space. Not since then have we seen, at least in the Western Hemisphere, the move to automation and the move to machine intelligence the way that we have it right now. So these are exciting times, and there are certain ways that you can go about moving forward with future readiness. So I've talked a little bit about it, but the data dilemma, if we can frame it up, is what we like to think of as a trifecta. One, there's what the big tech companies are doing to reshape the internet. I'm going to talk briefly about that. Two, there is what's happening with public policy. I'm going to talk specifically about data privacy today and the FTC safeguard rule. And then lastly, what is the biggest opportunity for all of us is to better structure and better manage the data that we have, that first party data that we have in our businesses. So all three of these things, they're all related to information, to data, to digital information, and of course, that which can be made digital. A couple of things, if you guys remember, the things that Apple did whenever they launched iOS 14.5, actually 14, and then iOS 14.5 later, 2 years ago, with iOS 15. They put the consumer in control. No longer, if you had a mobile app that was out there that your customers used, all of a sudden you probably saw your mobile management systems, the dashboards, go flat, because about 75% of Apple users, iPhone users, iPad users, MacBook users, they have decided to say no, to say ask app not to track. That's one big thing that's really challenged everything from advertising agencies and advertising networks to businesses themselves. The other exciting things are what Google has done, and Apple as well, with moving from infotainment to the operating system for the vehicle. Pictured here is Volvo, and their entire 2023 fleet, as most of you may know, now has Google as the operating system, not Google as the infotainment system, but as the system that knows when the brake pads are getting thin, when there's a problem with a belt, and only one selection that you can do with a Volvo now in a hybrid, right? When there's something going on with the vehicle, it is Google that knows about it as much as Volvo does. That is a seismic change in the industry. the cookie is going to crumble. As many of you may know, and your marketing teams, if you're not marketers yourselves, have told you that this summer in June, Google will sunset universal analytics. What does that mean? Google will no longer support Google Analytics and require everybody to move to GA4, Google Analytics 4, the fourth generation of that tool. The other thing that will happen, who knows when, maybe 6 days, maybe 6 weeks, maybe 6 months after they require everybody to move to GA4, they will stop supporting third-party cookies through Chrome. What does that mean? Is it means the majority of the systems you use in your dealership will no longer be able to run the analytics and the metrics that they do today, because the pixels you have on your website and the cookies you leave on visitors' browsers just won't work as they did last year. So a quick recap of what's going on here. Apple is building 4 walls around itself. It is becoming an operating system for vehicles, very stealthily. They've also been rumored and have shown their cards a few times on what they're going to do to build their own vehicle or to power other OEMs' vehicles with their technology, with their artificial intelligence and machine learning. If you think about it, about, say 60% of the United States right now who has broadband in the house, because it's not everyone who has broadband in the house, is using Apple TV to watch television. So if you think about this for a second, if you're a house that uses iPhones, that maybe has a Apple Watch, maybe has MacBooks, certainly if you're driving a Volvo, not a Volvo, if you're driving something other than a Volvo and using CarPlay to listen to music in your car, what's slowly happening is that Apple knows everything about you everywhere you go. Amazon, early last year, moved to block Google from tracking Amazon customers in and out of Amazon.com. Now, this sounds territorial, but what a lot of people are calling it is digital colonialism. It's where these big tech platforms are doing all they can to build their own ad networks and their own proprietary fortress around themselves. Some people will call it a feudal future that we will see, but no longer will you be able just to have your ad agency go to one place to buy all your media. They'll have to start to separately go to these companies to reach the users in their environments. Google, we already mentioned that. I live in Austin, and the middle of Austin, and right about 3 years ago, Google came and exercised right of way to lay fiber optics through our neighborhood. And now my family, we use Google Fiber for our internet access. Again, same thing I was mentioning about Apple before. Now Google sees everything that comes out of my house, even my Ring doorbell, which is an Amazon product. The data from it swims through Google pipes. So now Google knows that, right? And Samsung, what people don't understand is that they have the largest installation of connected televisions in the United States. And every one of those televisions, if you have one yourself, you know what I mean. The day that you turn that television on the first time, you were asked to pair your phone, whether it's an iPhone or it's a Galaxy, with that device. As my friends at Samsung say, they're the only people that know when you see a KFC commercial and then when you drive by one. This is all going to end up in a future where blockchain, not cryptocurrency, but blockchain becomes the fabric of the internet. Higher integrity and higher fidelity of information, cleaning up the act of basically the mess we made over the last 20 years with the internet. So there's a number of other things that are happening from a legislative standpoint that are trying to help us clean up this mess. And those are customer data privacy laws. You can go to IAP, IAPP. You can just go to your favorite search engine. I use DuckDuckGo. You may use Google. You may use Bing. But if you go to your search engine, you can look up IAP, privacy legislation trackers. And there's a number of resources there to let you know what's happening in your state. Right now, we're seeing 5 states, California, Utah, Colorado, Virginia, and Connecticut, which were the first to launch new data privacy laws. These data privacy laws basically grant the consumer, the audience, or your customer these rights: the opportunity for them to contact you and ask you for a copy of all the data you have on them, an ability to look at what you've done with that data and to correct it, to delete some of it if they want, to deactivate it, giving the customer control over the data that you use to run marketing ops, customer experience ops, and overall business operations. That's what these laws specifically delineate you must do. I'm using Apple as an example here because if you go to privacy.apple.com and you're an Apple user, you can use your Apple ID and password to get in and actually do this right now with them. I think it's a purported thing that they're doing. I don't think they're actually sharing all the data they have on you, but it's what you'll see all businesses in the next 5 years having something that looks like this on their website to be able to comply with these data privacy rules. The big one, obviously, for retail automotive is what the Federal Trade Commission has passed as part of a larger bill, but specific to financial services organizations, and that which will affect dealers with enforcement starting in June of this year. And with this, with the data that you collect and the data that you use there in the dealer, I'd like to thank my good friend Tom Klein with Vantage Point, who basically pulled this list and shared it with me. But you'll have to designate someone who is, quote, qualified, a very subjective statement, but someone who knows how your systems operate and how they can be secure, to be the person who oversees your security program. You'll have to have written risk assessments, meaning those that can be posted publicly and allowing your customers and your teams to understand what the current state of cyber risks is in the organization. You'll have to limit and monitor who on your team has access to the most sensitive information. Let's be clear, the FTC considers a mailing address to be very sensitive information. And let me be honest with you, if I have your address and I have your phone number, your mobile number, and I have your email address, if I have those three things or just two of those things, I can tell you anything I want to know about you. The magazines you subscribe to, your social security number, your credit score, I can get it all through that information. So the FTC is taking this very serious on what they consider sensitive information. You'll have to encrypt it at all places, whether it's in transit, between systems, or if it's at rest within a database. You'll have to train security personnel. You'll have to develop an incident and response plan that everyone in the organization is signed up to, has agreed that they've read it and that they understand what to do if they see something, to report it and how to report it and how to spot something that is a violation or is a risk or a probability of some bad actor, a breach, or someone who has taken sensitive information from your business. And then you'll have to periodically assess the security practice of your vendors. And that means everyone who you are licensing software from right now, they'll have to also comply with this rule. They'll have to work with you. It's a heavy lift, but they're going to be the ones that have to do this lockstep with you, every single one of them. And then lastly, you'll have to implement multi-factor authentication or some other security method to make sure that anyone who has access to this information can be held accountable and can be monitored as they are logging in and logging out, to run lists, to look up customer information, VIN information, or anything else associated with a customer record. So the first thing I'm excited to share with you is, even for independent dealers, for less than $1,000, you have the opportunity now to use data science products, artificial intelligence, that will go into your systems and basically do what we call autonomous discovery. Understand where you have cyber risks, help you get cyber insurance by making sure that you are secure and watertight, as it were. There's other things that data science can do with you to understand the data that you're sitting on right now across all of the systems that you're using. And there are ways that that can be used with your partners and your other data sources. We'll talk more about that later. And I especially want you guys to ask questions about autonomous discovery if you have them. Now, the thing that I think you're all going to hear time and time again this year, many of you may already have a customer data platform that you're using. You may already have 5 to 10 of your systems integrated together. But the best in class customer data platforms that are on the market today are prepared for what must go in to that central single source of truth for your organization, the CDP. And that's a combination of digital, which is what we all know as email, as web traffic, as other customer records that may exist in a CRM or your DMS, any of those things. And then that which is offline data. Go into the F&I office, look at those filing cabinets. Everything that's on paper should be digitized and should be made from an archive standpoint associated with customer records, something anyone can access through that CDP. And then lastly, where we are today with 75% plus of all new vehicles being connected to the internet full-time, an opportunity, and there are opportunities for dealers to have access to those insights without running a diagnostic in a bay, for you to be able to have a real-time access to the health of vehicles that you've sold in the future. And I mean that in the next 3+ years, you, the dealer, should be able to issue apps that live on the car that give you that real-time view of the health of a vehicle. So customer data platforms themselves, this is a much more practical view of them. With customer data platforms, you have the opportunity to integrate your CRM and DMS, your email marketing system or management system, your newsletter tool that you use, anything you're doing with SMS and MMS, any apps that you have issued out there that folks are using, your F&I tools, obviously, third-party data sources that you may bring in, even the VIN intel that you have, and then marketing automation. Over to the right, you'll see some of the things that I see most dealers outsourcing. And that is what you're doing from a BDC standpoint, or what you're doing to have someone run some type of chat service after hours on your website. You have other dealers and vendors that have data that rightly belongs to you or your customers that you have an opportunity to have a copy of in your CDP. Your agency, if they're buying programmatic media for you, television, display ads in the internet, anything that they're doing right now with a demand side platform or just with direct media relationships, there's data that you would be able to incorporate with your CDP to have a better view and a better understanding of your customers that you know today and the customers you want to reach. And then lastly, as I said before, a DSP if that's separate than your agency. To pay this off, why would you do this? Well, if you have a customer, and let's say this customer is following you on Instagram with the Twitter handle Clifster. I don't know if that's an actual person. I've never looked, but go with me on this. Clifster has started to follow you on Twitter, or on maybe Twitter or Instagram, and has started to like and comment on the photos that you're sharing. Google has told you that Clifford has visited your website and or is showing up with the search results reporting that you're getting. From a point of sale, you have another record for this individual, because when they come into the service department, they use an Amex one day and a MasterCard the next. And his name on that card is Cliff B. Smith. When they visit the website, the current way that you use pixels and cookies, it just shows that Cliff is visiting your website. And in your CRM, maybe the DMS, there's a record for C. Smith. Lastly, you have a very utilitarian mobile app that many of your customers use, or you don't, but if you did, when this person downloaded that mobile app, they just said their name was Cliff. If we combine all these from all the disparate systems that manage each of these functions, we would just build one record within the CDP, and that record would be for Cliff. Just one person instead of very elementary view here, 6 people. Most organizations, even car dealers, have as many as 30 or 40 different records existing across the organization of one customer. So beyond privacy and compliance, why is 2023 the year? Other than what I said, what Google's going to do, what Apple's doing, and basically what many of your colleagues and many of your friends in the business have already done in onboarding a CDP. Moving beyond that is building that golden customer record for personalization, for better segmentation, to understand that people drive a certain make and model in a certain time frame or a certain model year, that live in certain zip codes, have different behavior than people who have the same make and model that live in a different zip code that bought the vehicle at a different time. Being able to analyze things to help you be better and sharper with content strategy and with what you and your agencies do to reach the audience. Real-time journey mapping. Instead of journey mapping, I like to think of it as journey analytics, something that the marketing team and ultimately the sales team can look at from a reporting standpoint to have empathy and understand what's happening with current known customers. And with that, the idea that you can build lookalike views of the customers. If you got people that already bought from you and they behave one way, how do we find more people that look like them, right? How do we do that through programmatic media? And how do we do that just from understanding who they are through a few questions we can ask them when they come on the lot? When you bring all this data in to the CDP, it should be clean and it should be structured. And why is that important? Is because all of the analysis I'm talking about, all of the magical insights that can come from a CDP, that is artificial intelligence at work for you. That's machine learning running models for you while you sleep. And what happens is, if you want to automate more things in the dealership, having that structured data will empower you to accelerate automation, because machines love clean, structured data. They can operate faster with it, and the robotic wares, artificial intelligence again, that are put into your system can much more quickly find what they need and make sense of it. And then lastly, what everyone's been talking about for 10 years, omni-channel, right? Multi-touch attribution, what's working and what's not. By having this single source of truth in a CDP, you've got an opportunity to understand what is working and what is not. What do you need to invest more in? What do you need to invest less in when it comes to marketing communications? I mentioned earlier on that previous slide, real-time journey analytics. This is effectively what an operation could look like if and when you invest in a CDP. Everyone across the organization would have an opportunity to build empathy with the audience and be able to do some type of benchmarking to understand last year versus this year analysis, and looking at cohorts and certain behaviors associated with certain drivers and owners of certain makes or models or year models. All of this is possible. And then having more concrete, unified focus in terms of what your objectives are and how you can achieve them. It will drive media and content, it'll drive more conversions. And the bigger thing here is understanding what a lot of you already know, is that the customer relationship doesn't start the minute they walk on the lot. It starts the minute you hand them the keys to the new vehicle and they leave. That's when the relationship starts. The CDP allows you to be able to fortify that relationship and be able to nurture it over time and have a higher probability of selling another vehicle to them. This is extremely important right now, I think, across the automotive industry, as we look at higher quality vehicles rolling off the assembly lines, but more importantly, what's happening with electrification and the threat that is to fixed ops, at least in terms of the frequency of things like oil changes and maintenance, because you have 1/200th the number of things that could go wrong or need repair on an electric automobile. So with that, shifting gears from the transactional selling and moving of metal to the nurturing of a customer relationship, that's what a CDP probably can do for you better than anything else. I already mentioned this. There's absolutely lots of excitement out in the marketplace right now, globally. About 3 million people are logging into OpenAI's Chat GPT right now, and they're having a piece of software, right? Math is all it is, artificial intelligence that is writing recipes for them, that is writing computer code for them, is writing blogs for them, introductory emails for them. This is the year I'm confident that you're going to see more of your vendors, and you're going to discover new opportunities to leverage artificial intelligence. As you look at automating things in the dealership with artificial intelligence, no, this is not left to big dealers. This is not left to franchise dealers. This is certainly not left to OEMs. This is an every dealer opportunity to change how you set goals and how you reorder priorities for what you're trying to do in terms of driving revenue and widening margins and building better relationships with the customer instead of just transactionally top of the funnel moving metal. As you do that, you're going to be able to understand where there's an opportunity to use a customer data platform or to move more operations to the cloud, which will help you clean and structure that data, and then to try and experiment different artificial intelligence tools over time. This isn't the time to sign 6-month agreements and 1-year contracts with people who say they can give you AI. This is the opportunity to do proofs of concept and to go out and find out what works best for you. Over time, those platforms like CDPs that incorporate machine learning, the machine itself will learn. It'll gain intelligence. It'll learn from what you're doing, how you've queried audience data, how you've built lists, how you've done research with that information that exists within that platform. As it's watching you do that, it will, while you sleep, it'll run its own models, and you can set business rules that every Tuesday you want an email or a digest on what that machine has found for you. This is what the opportunity of structured data can do for you and what artificial intelligence is there to do to help you. Obviously, all along where we are is the need for humans to be involved. And my good friend Larry Feldman and I talk about this all the time. It's about what we can do to bring automation and clearer insights to the organization, but even better, how do we get all the humans in the dealer to leverage that source of insight and deliver a better customer experience? Delivering a better customer experience and then being able to provide feedback to whoever is running your digital operation is a fantastic opportunity to teach technology to do what you need it to do. And then obviously, if we do this right, it's rinse and repeat, right? This is how we grow. This is how we iterate. This is how we've done it before with dozens of changes that have happened to the automotive industry over the last 30 or 40 years. This is all we're going to have to do again as we move into automation, as we move into electrification, and we move into the connected relationship of both vehicle and driver and the dealer itself. So with our time we have left here, I wanted to open it up for any questions. I covered a lot of ground there, and I talked about some things that honestly would require a full product demo. I did not really push any brands to you today. It's not my job to get on a webinar and try to sell something. It's just to tell you what's plausible, what's on the marketplace, and obviously what you should go shopping for right now. If you have any questions, or I don't know, Janet, if you've seen anything come in yet, I'd be happy to answer.
Yes, great. Thank you. So we do have a couple questions that have come in while you were speaking, and you participants, you still have an opportunity. Please submit additional questions in the Q&A panel. When it comes to the customer data platform, at what stage should a company start considering a CDP, and what is that threshold?
Well, you know, it's a different answer for every business. I think if you've been digitizing your business for 10 plus years, and you have an old server in the closet, and you have an AWS instance that CDK or Cox or somebody else has asked you to open to connect some systems. In this situation, I think a CDP is a requirement. I think what the customer data platform can do from a compliance standpoint to help you find data when you need to, and to know where data is at all times. I think that, and what I mentioned about data science, I think these are, I think 2023 is the year to do it. And I think for all businesses, this isn't me saying it, it's what Google has said, right? Google has said they're changing the rules of engagement on the internet, and they are going to do it in 2023 and 2024. So from a timing standpoint, I think this is the moment that you need to be diligent. You need to be very wise and selective about what you buy into and what you're looking at in terms of digitizing the business. But the opportunity to connect everything, I think, is a here and now opportunity for just about everybody.
Well, and that's a great segue into the next question about connecting all the data in one place, one spot. The question is, what does that mean for data privacy, for security?
Well, you know, as we've stated a few slides ago, Janet, that's a great question, because it's a scary thought, right? You're saying, especially when I'm talking to some car dealers, and they've shored up as much as they can with the DMS, right? With that, I'm here to tell them, hey, there's other data, right? And they're like, but why would I want to have a whole copy of it somewhere else? Well, that's just it. You've got some redundancy now. You've got data that exists in a couple of different places, both operationally and from an analytics standpoint within the CDP. If you looked at the prescription that these data privacy laws are telling you that you're going to have to adhere to, and I think, you know, we may see sometime over the next probably 24 months, whether it's the FTC or it's a congressional move, we may see a national data privacy law. And that would actually be a relief, because as I was showing on the map, if you're over there in those Western states and you have a dealership in New Mexico who sold cars to people in California, Utah, and Colorado, you've got 3 different states, not including your own, that have different laws, right? That you have to be held to. But the CDP puts you in a position to be able to check a big box and say you can comply because you know where the data is, and you can make it to where you can have a customer come in and or maybe log in online and see what you have on them, correct it, ask you to stop using it, all the things that those laws say. From a security standpoint, again, that FTC checklist, I think the FTC data safeguard list is a fantastic to-do list for security, whether you have a CDP or not. I think having someone who's designated that it's their job to monitor security so many hours a week, they are dedicated to running an audit and understanding what's going right, what's not, what's of concern with data governance in the organization, and how people are either following or are respecting the security protocols that are in place. Multi-factor authentication, not using the same password that you use to access on-site information anywhere else. Things like that, right? I mean, there's a long list. I won't go through it all right here, but I think whether
Yeah.
you have a CDP or you don't, your data is actually much more secure in a CDP than it is in your marketing automation or your email marketing system. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the questions that came through is, what if we don't have a budget for a CDP? How do we collect and manage our data more effectively and efficiently?
So I think there's a couple of different options depending on the number of systems that your business is using. You may have the opportunity to look at tools like Zapier that allow you to create connections between systems and to create a golden record within a CRM or a DMS. There's an opportunity to do that. I would say that at the same time, the beautiful thing about where we are today in 2023, there are a number of customer data platform solutions which are all about data unification, as we said, about taking Cliff's information and making just one record for Cliff. That's also called entity resolution. That's like saying, hey, I've got information associated with this one person that exists in 20 different places. There are very affordable data science tools that you can get off the market that will allow you to do that and basically dedupe your organization with those records. So, there are some things you can do to what I would say are crawl and walk right now. But the good news is that the affordability and the cost friendliness of the technology I've shared with you today, it's actually there and it's feasible for just about everyone, especially if they're just paying for it on a monthly basis to license it. And there's not a tremendous amount of heavy lifting with systems to be integrated.
No, great information. And as individuals, businesses look for these solutions and look for partners to provide these services, who should own the CDP and the data that is the analytics behind it?
So by law, with or without a state privacy law where you are, by law, the data that you're using to run your business, you're actually held liable for it. And with that, I would say you want to bring that ownership in-house. You want to own and manage as much as you can, and you want to play nice with your third-party vendors, agencies, other enablers that you work with to make sure that you've got a strong data governance policy in place that they adhere to as much as what you're trying to get everybody internally to adhere to. But I would say you're going to want that to be internal. And I would say the same person that's in charge of security should be the same person who holds the golden keys or the administrative keys to a customer data platform and the operation around it.
Great. And then what would be common pitfalls or mistakes you see companies make as they try to roll out a data analytics strategy?
Well, I'm not going to kid myself. I think probably everyone that joined today and may watch this later would probably look at me and say, "Hey, we've been doing data analytics for 10 years." I get it. I think as I said in one of those first slides in talking about digital transformation trends, we're just in a situation right now where we've quite frankly over digitized our business, and we've done so with data maintenance and management as an afterthought or as something that's in the back of our minds that is IT's problem or our IT vendor's problem. So I won't call it a mistake. It's a very natural thing that a lot of folks have done. We get our dashboards that enable us to do our jobs, and that's all we really care about. It's all we really need. But at the end of the day, we've got this fantastic opportunity to bring data literacy across the organization, both how we talk about and how we use data. What are our protocols for looking at research or just looking at a specific customer's record when they come in for service or whenever we're dinged and alerted that their lease is about to expire or their note's about to mature whatever it might be, you know, those triggers that many of us already operate on. I think at that point, having data as something that's front of mind and a focus in terms of how we talk about our customer relationships and our operations is absolutely important. So what does that mean? It just means if you think about regularly scheduled meetings or reports that are issued across the dealership by department or with a sales manager or the general manager, there probably needs to be a portion of those reports and a portion of those meetings where we talk about data. And that doesn't happen right now, right? It's not something that most folks have been concerned about naturally, because we're just trying to sell cars. We're just trying to drive up margins. We may be trying to drive OPEX down, which is another thing a CDP does for you, building efficiencies. It'll lower your marketing expense by 20%. But bottom line is making data part of the vernacular or the language around the dealership. Nobody does that right now. And I think everyone needs to see how they can slowly, methodically weave it into that.
Great. And there's one more question. If anybody else has questions, please, put them in the Q&A. What impact do you think the most recent election will have on privacy legislation?
Well, I think it didn't matter who was in the White House or who has a majority in Congress. There's a give and take for them, right? Big tech lobbies the government hard, always has, always will, just like big media has, right? It's just one of those things that I don't think American citizens have had much control over ever. But we acutely, every time there's a shift in administrations, we want to ask that question. And I've said it before, I think just to bring some uniformity across the United States, we should see, and we almost did see, right before and during and after the election last year, the midterm that is, we almost saw a actual national privacy law pass. That could have been something that could have mitigated what the FTC has said from a data safeguard standpoint. And it certainly would have brought uniformity between those 5 states that are live now and the other 10 that are in committee or discussion of similar state data privacy laws. I think we should expect at some point, it doesn't matter really who the administration is, I think we should expect the US to have a national data privacy law and data governance stipulations that are associated with it.
It's great information. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, Tim, you taking the time to be with our members today, those of you that joined us at this moment, and then those of you that might be watching this at a later date. It was just great information. NIADA offers a wide variety of training, whether it's sales, collections, marketing, or service. Our classes cover all aspects of dealer operations for each business model: retail, buy here, pay here, or lease here, pay here. You can visit NIADA.com, click on Learn for our current course schedule, as well as upcoming webinars. Obviously, information technology, data governance, and compliance will be hot topics at NIADA's convention. The convention will take place at the Wynn in Las Vegas, June 19th to 20th. Please go to NIADA.com. and you'll get more information about the convention, how to register, and any other details. When you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation. We'd really appreciate it if you'd complete that, provide your feedback. We will also follow up with an email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to the recording of today's webinar, as well as the slide deck. Please share with your colleagues. I think this was extremely valuable information. If you do have additional questions post the webinar, feel free to reach out to Tim or myself directly. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.